all sitting comfortably. Hello and welcome to a very wholesome episode of Hovin's Hideaway, where we talk about a very wholesome manga. And I'm going to do this voice for the whole time. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. Hey guys, this week we've got a new person on. Would you like to introduce... Oh, two new people on, actually. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
It seems we're having some communication problems.
The tank man should go first.
Oh god. No, I'm Sindri. I'm Hovin's flatmate, and I'm a university student doing my doctorate in history, and I read a lot of shit. So.
Yeah, and would the other newcomer like to voice themselves?
Okay, so I'm Asha, and I'm Maciek's girlfriend, and
flatmate.
And flatmate.
It's the Flatmate podcast.
We got two
Yes.
sets of flatmates.
Yay! And I'm very very shy, and and I can be very quiet sometimes. So sorry for that.
You could say we picked the perfect host for this particular subject matter. Before we get into the main topic, what have you guys been reading or watching recently? Oh wait, sorry, I completely forgot. Also, Wensleydale's here. Say hi, Wensleydale.
I'm Wensleydale, and this segment of the podcast will be called Cheddar-san can't communicate fluently because he stammers. So, just a warning.
Alright, sorry. Sindri, keep going.
Yeah, so I've been on a bit of a martial arts manga binge, I guess. So I've been reading Kengan Ashura and finished that. And that is completely out of the sort of topic range of our current of what this podcast is going to be about, but it's incredibly violent martial arts manga, berserk-esque sort of aesthetic, sometimes kind of charming. I'd say it's pretty good if you're into that sort of stuff. And I've also been reading Kenichi, which is a more straightforward shonen martial arts manga, which is also a bit thirsty on every now and again. But
it is. I love Kenichi a lot. I really got a sense of proper established power scaling when it comes to its characters, when it comes to the difference between the apprentices and masters in those martial arts circles. I really had a good time reading it back when I did.
Yeah, I'm getting into the sort of last stretch of it now. I'm on volume 45, and I think that possibly my only major objection with it is that the mangaka seems to have introduced quite a few characters later on that break the disciple power scale at the very least, because they introduce Kano Sho and the sort of greatest disciple of the main bad guy organization, and then when he's out the picture they just add more in who are somehow arbitrarily even more powerful. But other than that, I really like it. It's very charming. A lot of the characters are quirky. It's very visually impressive. It's quite a simple art style, I'd say. So yeah, it's a good read. It helps you while away the hours.
Oh, we watched Evangelion for the first time.
Yeah.
Depression Spiral, the series.
We essentially set out to doing a bonus mosaic episode, just to vlog about it as a patron reward. But then we kind of understood towards the end that perhaps this isn't the best idea. we're like 30 years behind on the theorizing and the all the explanations.
Did you do the series and the End of Eva movie?
We haven't yet watched the movie.
No. No.
I couldn't even finish either. I found it just monstrously depressing, and I didn't really find it that rewarding, but I guess that's because I'm not really into the sort of concept of it as much. But it's a classic, but classics aren't always for everybody. So
Yeah, I have some issues when it comes to the resolution of how Shinji dealt with his abusive parenting, but on the whole, I did find it a rewarding experience.
Okay, I've sort of been like not really committing to much because I'm just in a state where I'm just sort of read and watch little bits of different series. I guess one of the things I've been watching more consistently is the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance prequel, which I am really enjoying. I've just got one episode left of it. And what it essentially is, for those who don't know, the Dark Crystal is it's an 80s Jim Henson production. It's a full high fantasy puppet film where there are no human characters, it's all puppets. It's sort of, in some ways, it's sort of the precursor to Labyrinth, which he had a lot more financial success with. But yeah, it's a very big cult hit. I only watched the original film quite recently, and I'm not like the biggest fan of it. It's just a bit too bare bones for me. But this new prequel series that Netflix has thrown money at is a huge improvement. It has a surprisingly dense world while also being very coherent and probably easy enough for kids to follow. It's got such memorably awful villains in the ruling class race, the Skeksis, and it's got some very likable characters. So my sort of stance on it is Lord of the Rings prequel TV series. Take notes. This is how you should be approaching it. Like, have an actual story to tell.
I mean, also hire Jason Isaacs. Just always hire Jason Isaacs.
Jason Isaacs voices the Emperor of the Skeksis.
Did he love his child?
The Emperor does not have a child to love.
Oh,
but yeah, we also get Mark Hamill doing his best Joker impression in it as well.
Yeah, he plays the evil scientist Skeksis, and he's doing a very Jokerish voice there. In any case, we should probably move on to the main topic of the video, which is a manga that has become hugely popular over the last couple of years. It's one of Weekly Shonen Sunday's big hitters, along with Detective Conan. It is the series Komi Can't Communicate, or Komi-san Communication something in Japanese.
Komi-san has a communication disorder.
Yes. It follows a boy called Hisahito Tadano, whose name just means average.
Just some
Average
guy.
Yeah.
Yes, and he goes to class with a girl called Komi, who is sort of admired by everyone in the class in a sort of weirdly pedestalizing way, because she is beautiful and seems to be very aloof and above things.
Yeah, she presents herself very elegantly. She doesn't talk very much, so a lot of people seem to think that she's some sort of like stoic and noble figure. And yeah, it's largely that most of the class and indeed the rest of the school tend to just put her up on this massive pedestal and go, yeah, Komi is our empress or goddess or whatever they want to worship her as.
And then at one point in the first chapter, Tadano comes across the discovery that she is not above everything. She just has a very severe communication disorder. And so the rest of the manga basically follows their attempts and struggles to make her 100 friends so she can overcome her communication problem. And over the course of it, a possible romance seems to bloom. So,
Wow, it's just like Eden Zero.
it is?
Well, Shiki also sets out to
To make 100
obtain
friends.
like
Yes,
100
yes,
friends.
it is exactly the same.
You take that heresy back where you found it, sir.
Oh, don't lie. If Elsie Crimson was in Komi, you'd enjoy it.
Oh, hell yeah.
So,
I'm not denying that one. Hiro
So
Mashima
it's-
knows exactly what he's doing, and I appreciate it greatly.
it's interesting. This there's a sort of the fandom in some circles is sort of known as the Church of Komi, and much like a church, there's a very strong domino effect of getting other people into it.
Yes.
So the person who got me into it on this podcast is Sindri, and then I in turn got Asher and Wensleydale to read it. Sindri, how exactly did you come across this series, and what interested you in it?
Oh my god, I think I can't remember. It was it might have been on Twitter, and some of my mutuals were talking about it, and then I looked into it, saw a couple of reviews of it, and I would agree with how quite a few people sort of framed it. It is sort of like reading a hug, effectively. It's nice and warm and wholesome for almost all of its run. And yeah, so then I started reading it, decided to catch up with it. I think I caught up with it within like a week or two because I was that invested in it, and then I just started bugging everybody around me to read it as well because it's fantastic.
So Asher, Wensleydale, what were your initial impressions of the series going in?
Well, I mean, you started reading it earlier, and then I'm kind of the newest acolyte since I read it on your recommendation, Hovin, but it was really Asha who dragged me into it. So we should start.
So okay, the most maybe important thing is that I found it very relatable because most of the things Komi feels I can relate to, and I guess I'm Komi minus being goddess part. So
You are to me.
Aww.
But yeah, you did say you went into kind of in your childhood you went through a few silent periods, didn't you?
Yes, I think so. I don't know what do I say about
You did mention you also related to Agari, right?
kind of, because now it's better, I guess. And now I am like a Gary, so not so much so much shy.
Yeah, it's one of the many side characters is Agari Himiko. She sort of projects this idea that Komi is her top, like her master.
Yeah.
And she's her
which,
dog.
And it is very, very forceful about this. Komi is just kind of like not participating in this at all. She's just not sure how to deal with this.
Yeah, Himiko's quite interesting in that respect because she's sort of got that. She's portrayed as sort of a meek wallflower for most of the time, and then you either get onto her interests or her relationship with Komi, and it becomes a lot more sort of forceful and stated out there.
She's certainly not the worst offender of the bunch, though. I think that goes to Yamai Ren.
Yeah.
Oh jeez.
Who is just the Yandere Stalker of the manga.
When I started reading this, I did almost drop the manga at that point, because I think, whereas Komi-san is pretty consistently great throughout, the manga arc that includes her, which is quite early on as well, is a bit of a deal breaker, and you can see that the mangaka walks it back quite a bit, because Yamai Ren is basically just... Whereas a lot of the side characters are realistic-ish or exaggerated portrayals of some sort of communication issue or personality quirk, Yamai Ren is just flat out a sociopath, and she is utterly unrelatable in most instances because she ties Tadano up and leaves him in her house and threatens to kill him, which is incredibly dark for a manga that talks about, you know, sort of wholesomeness and finding friends. And I like that the mangaka has been reducing her presence progressively throughout the series, because she just doesn't fit with the tone.
And she sexually harasses Komi a lot.
Yeah.
She's right there in between, a bit worse than Sanji, but a little better than Mineta.
Yeah, she does do. I think she's the one that ends up like taking Komi's tights when she tears them and wearing them, which is rather disgusting. But the characters don't really call her out on it, apart from the actual arc where she kidnaps Tadano, and it is sort of questionable behaviour considering that the others have their like quirks, but all of them are generally quite benign.
Yeah, you have Omoharu rather, who's a Chuny. You have Najimi, who is of ambiguous gender and is everybody's childhood friend, and is also sort of the one who organizes the big events. Yeah, you have Katai Ai, who is the one that I am weak in the knees for because just
Oh, he's
me.
so lovely.
Actually, no, it's Katai Makoto.
Yeah.
Katai Ai is the younger sibling, but like yeah, he's the big delinquent-looking guy who just wants to make friends with people and finds himself a great kinship with Tadano.
This is the second best character.
So yeah, no, the Komi, I think as far as like big waifu characters go, she might be the most popular one I've seen that hasn't even gotten an anime yet. Like she is all over my Twitter, just art of her, reaction images of her. Because in particular, the way that the manga draws her is very cute and quite striking.
Yeah, I think that the mangaka might have struck gold when he designed Komi, because she's quite a simple design, but comes in several flavours. It can be used like really comedically, especially with a little notepad that you can just like write memes on or whatever. And
yes, so for people who don't know, she mainly communicates through a notepad, she's able to talk a little here and there, but in intermittent bursts, and she's a little bit better on the phone with Tadano specifically.
Yeah, actually, that is one of the sort of great points that they start moving through, is that Komi starts being able to communicate a little bit with more people as the series goes on. It's not just her like instantly making friends and still being silent. I really like the sort of steady progression towards us talking to people more.
So yeah, so do we have any points on how the art in this manga looks? Because yeah, like you said, in the way they draw Komi, they're very it can vary between she's sort of slightly chibified with big bug eyes, and then sometimes they go very super detailed on it, depending on the mood of the scene, really. What do you guys thought?
I've got to say, I think that it's actually quite ingenious, because the sort of normal when the characters are talking to each other is very sort of economical with how it sort of works. It's not overly detailed. It uses as much as it needs for that scene, and then it saves the mangaka's time to do those really like gorgeous single frame pieces depicting Komi, and it's really skillfully done, I think. Yeah, very very good use of the artist's talent for the different panels.
I think it's very well suited towards the cutesy comedy that this manga goes for. I like it a lot, especially how certain characters like for example Najimi is drawn.
Yeah, and it's very mimetic, so you can make a lot of memes from that. So I like it.
There's sort of a parallel story along with the main centric, the Komi stuff, which focuses on several parallel stories. In fact, there's one focused on Komi's brother and Tadano's sister and the people they interact with at school, and another focused on how Komi's dad and mum met. That one in particular I really like.
Oh my gosh, this is the cutest thing.
Yes. This is the best.
Well, one of the things that I found really interesting about it is they just did a play on words with Komi's mom's name as well, because like her original name and surname mean like I think it's young age, and then now when they've changed it around, her name now means old age. But I also like this because all of the characters are in some way a play on words with their name, because you know Komi Shoko is Komusho or communication disorder. Naka-Naka-san is a tunie, which I can't remember. I can't even remember the pun that's based from. And they've used the same one with Komi Shosuke, except I think that that's meant to be like he's good at communicating but won't.
So there's one other character that I really wanted to touch on, because she's a character where I'm in a really weird place on her, and that's Manbagi Rumiko. I really like her. I think she is very likable and sweet, but both of her major functions in the plot I've had some real issues with.
Yeah.
The first of which being her introductory arc, where she's a Garu, and she comes into school wearing loads and loads and loads of makeup. And sort of the big resolution of that arc is that it's just something she does to make up for her lack of confidence, and she's way better off with like washing it off and going for a more natural look, which I'm not really a big fan of that decision. Don't know about you guys.
I mean, the way that Tadano particularly handles it can come off as being quite clumsy, but I think that generally the point behind it was more that it's not really the sort of issue with the makeup. It could have been anything that Rumiko did, but she did that specific use of Gyaru makeup was because she was hanging out with certain friends and it made her feel confident and fit in around them. So it could have been any sort of accessory. It's just unfortunate that they then chose to base it on base this idea that, you know, she's lacking confidence and should therefore try and appear natural, as if you're going for that sort of stereotyped, oh, you shouldn't use makeup because it's deceitful sort of line that you see, you know, propagated around online at times.
Yeah, I didn't like it too because it came off as this kind of girls shouldn't wear makeup because it makes them I don't know, appalling. So yeah.
And then the second thing, the second problem that I have with her, and I guess this is kind of getting into spoilers since it's quite a late development, so I guess sort of pause or turn off the podcast here if that bothers you. Although it's still an ongoing series, but they're really going for a love triangle between Rumiko, Komi, and Tadano, and that's just not what the appeal of this manga is to me. And I don't. It's a lose-lose because
I think,
whatever happens, it's going to end in Rumiko being really upset.
I think that you've got a fundamental problem there, isn't it? Because the entire sort of thing they were moving through is how does Komi improve at communication to the point where she's confident enough to tell Tadano how she feels, and how does Tadano get built up enough with his confidence to realise that he's also pedestalizing Komi in some way. And they then took that and added in this sort of romantic love triangle bit that in a manga that's supposed to resolve most of its problems in a really wholesome manner is going to end up with one character being absolutely devastated. And surely you could walk that back at some point and have them, you know, end up with somebody else, but it's still not I still don't think that it's the best move for it.
Yeah, it seems to add a lot of conflict where it isn't needed, but because both Komi's communication disorder and Tadano's social standing are like in the classroom. I mean, are like hurdles enough for there to be enough development without the love triangle derailing it in a sense.
Yeah.
So, do any of you guys have thoughts on other characters? Because that's covered the main bases of what I wanted to, of who I wanted to talk about.
I just have one observation about Manbagi still. Is that you seem to very quickly turn around on tsundere when they're tan.
All right, look.
To
be quite clear, I don't have a problem with every tsundere. If it's kind of played in they're very visibly flustered and they're clearly kind of a sweetheart, it doesn't bother me. It's just when the character's just an abusive bitch that I'm just like, nope.
I think that the reason that, because tsunderes usually chafe with me as well because I don't like them at all. The problem is that a way that a lot of writers, a lot of anime portray tsundere characters is all sun and no dere. And the entire thing with Manbaggy is she just she overreacts to anything Tadano says and then like walks it back progressively. So it does show that she's like, she's just not just doing this because she's horrible. Whereas, you've been watching Evangelion. Asuka is completely the opposite. She's borderline sociopathic and hates everybody and is mean to them. She's all sun and no dere.
Oh, Sindri, I'm so proud.
Hey, that's oi.
Yeah, no. I guess there's one other character I can touch on. So there are a couple of girls that there's an arc where they go on a field trip, and there's a couple of girls that take a little bit, but really latch onto Komi because she's basically teamed up. She's sort of put in a group with them, and she doesn't know them very well. One of which, Kato Mikuni, ends up having a huge crush on Cat-Eye, which of course is just a recipe for just my OTP. It's like you've got like the glasses girl and like the heart of gold thug as a potential pairing. I'm obviously I'm gonna be all over that.
Aww.
Well, I mean, the mangaka has been pushing it forward progressively because they both exchange chocolates, I think, is it, on White Day and Valentine's Day as well. So there's a clear push in that direction, but I think that you're sort of selling the comedy duo of them short as well, because they've got that sort of, her and her partner in crime are basically the two halves of a comedy duo. Mikuni is the straight man.
Even though on Valentine's Day, Katai gives a chocolate to Tadano instead, so...
That was so funny.
Asha, do you have any other characters you want to talk about?
Maybe this I don't remember the name, but this girl that talks very slowly, or is supposed to.
Oh, Tori-san. Yeah,
yes,
Katie Tori.
Because she seems very very cute, and at some point there is this other girl. She seems to hang out with this other girl very spend so much time with her.
Oh yeah, the quote unquote older sister character.
Yeah, and I think that is my OTP because they seem so normal, and so they seem every time they seem like they work so well. So yeah.
I'm afraid that I had a bit of a dislike of her at first, since she reminded me of a very similar character in Black Clover, Henry.
Henry, yes. Yeah, I've gone on over this before, but Black Clover is one of those series where I read it every week, or well, I used to, but I can't remember like most of the cast. They just go in one ear out the other for me. I guess if we're all done there,
you have missed out on the best in joke that runs throughout the series of Komitani-kun. Yes, he is fantastic because and also Tadano's little sister as well, Hitomi. Komitani-kun gets to stand around and make just snide observations throughout every chapter, which is usually good for a few laughs as it continues going. But yeah, you mentioned about the sort of mini arc between Shosuke and Hitomi earlier, but I think that there is just something fantastic about how they've portrayed Shosuke as this ultra competent character throughout the manga. He's good at everything. You know, they show how he spends his Saturday. He repairs his computer. He goes and works out, and then he builds a house of cards, learns the guitar, changes his shirt, and then goes back out again. And yet he can't deal with an overly inquisitive little sister character. And they use a very similar panel at the end of all of those, where he's just lying on the sofa after school, absolutely worn out because he can't put up with her at all. I think that the cast itself, it's not an ensemble cast by any means, because they sort of float in and out a lot, but there's a lot of mileage in almost all of the characters there, and a lot of their sort of cute quirks are very nice to read into.
They've changed out quite a lot since they moved into third year, because second year, I think.
Yeah, which was a bit of a ballsy move, actually. You had very kind of established a set of characters, and I could imagine that a lot of fan favorites just got pushed to the sidelines, and I wonder how the fandom reacted back then.
Well, quite a lot of them tend to reappear, so Nakanaka-san is still there, Makaru is still there. But they've, at the very least, sort of they've sort of pushed back, and I think that's good, because it means you don't exhaust their potential for humor, but they're still sort of present if the mangaka wants to use them. And yeah, I think that removing some of them was a good idea. Like the fact that Yamai's not in their class anymore means you don't have to deal with because some of the characters' quirks make them particularly dominant in social situations, so that the cast have to sort of skirt around them. By shuffling them out of the class means that you can sideline them without too much issue.
It's a bit of a shame that Najimi's a bit out of focus at the moment, though. I really enjoyed the characters that one of the few classmates who actually can communicate normally with everyone to the point that they have how many was it, like a few thousand friends.
I'm sort of ambivalent on Najimi, I think, because Najimi. One of the things that I dislike about Najimi is that they are often used as the sort of interrupter character, because they have that energy. They jump in the way of Komi and Tadano having any sort of heart-to-heart moments in a lot of chapters, so they sort of needed to be pushed out the way if you're going to do anything serious.
Yeah, I did notice that a bit at first. They got better about it later on, I think. I also just enjoy that they are an NB character, and that's not the whole deal. And in fact, the main character trait is that everyone's childhood friend, so fulfilling this slice of life quota. And
yeah, I think I guess one last sort of running gag with a character is maybe my favorite one in the whole series, is a group of sort of delinquent kids who are under the impression, because of how many people sort of worship her, that Komi is the boss of the school, and it's like a Yakuza boss type character, and then they assume that that Katai is Komi.
They are not so wrong.
I love gags that are just based around just misunderstandings like that, and just people having different assumptions and information about each other.
I mean, you imply that Komi isn't the boss of the school. I'm fairly sure if she actually could communicate, which might be by the end of the series, that she will be the boss of the school.
Maybe.
I guess, do we have a favourite or standout story arc or just sort of event from the series? I guess to start, I really I think it's the Valentine's Day or the White Day one. There's a very like slow build over whether Komi is going to give Tadano her chocolate or not, and just the payoff of it is just one of the sweetest things. It's like, I'm covered in maple syrup. Fuck.
For me, I have two choices. One was when Komi and Tadano's families met up over summer on one trip, and you know there was the sweet moment where when the two got caught up in the rain and had to stay under one blanket together, and but they were too afraid of communicating, so they were still cold because there was a draft, and also Katai's chapter when, as usual, he crushed on Tadano hard and tried to use different techniques to get closer to Tadano as he invited him over for a lunch, and it just looked. He always managed to look really intimidating to Komi, since he looks like a delinquent.
I think the possibly my favourite single chapter is the one where Tadano is ill, and he rings Komi by accident, thinking that he's rung Najimi. And she comes over and takes care of him, because I think that it's absolutely adorable. And it actually has, sort of Komi being the one who is sort of active of the pair of them at that point. But I think in terms of best arc, possibly the Valentine's one, or maybe the Culture Festival. Because the Culture Festival, not only does it have them do like silly stuff like the maid cafe, but she has to interact with almost all of the other members of the cast at some point. And so you get a lot of variety in there, and there's a lot of scenario changes and things. So it really gives a sort of variety to the amount of things that you can do with just one concept for the arc.
My favorite was probably the arc when Komi has to be in one house with this little girl. She stays in her house because it was so like. It was very relatable also, and it was amazing to see how someone with her condition has to spend so much time with a complete stranger, and like the stranger is in her most private part of her life, because I guess for Komi her house was also very like a very private place, and to have someone completely new that she didn't knew before, and so suddenly was had to be very striking, and to see how she like warmed up to her, and also this girl warmed up to Komi was very wholesome, and yeah, I loved that.
Yeah, it was a lovely arc. So I sent out a post on Reddit and a Q&A for Q&A questions, and I posted a tweet, and we've gotten precisely 2 responses back, and neither of them are very good. One is from Dog Father of iCat, who asks, in which Japanese province do Komi-san's events occur? He immediately answers this, but as the two, I assume, haven't seen this post yet, Asher, Wensleydale, do you have any guesses?
Well, I'm trying to review. I'm from Japan at the moment, so I think it's safe to say that I have no idea.
Yeah, me too.
It's Kanagawa Prefecture. You guys do not take home the prize van, whatever. And then Dogfather of iCat asks or says an important topic to discuss. How would Tadano be gently rejected in the past?
Come again?
What? That's not even grammatically correct.
This person doesn't even like pluralize Komi-sans, like in terms of when they say in terms of Komi-san events occur. I'm not sure what they mean by this. And then the other question is from my good buddy on Twitter, Liam N. Tasker. I hope you're listening, love. Who asks, did that Danganronpa podcast come out?
Well, I think it's safe to say that I don't know.
No, actually no, we did get one other question, which is asking about the lesbian stalker character. It's about Yamai Ren. We have covered that though. However, in absence of many decent questions to go by, I've decided to make up some. So, an anime. So a Komi-san anime. Is this a good idea or not? Could it work?
I think it would.
Maybe.
I think it could work as well as any anime. Honestly, I don't see any reason against it.
I think that if you want to make it work, you really have to try and get all of the sort of visuals into it. You know how Dr. Stone has been adapting in things like Mecha Senku from the manga?
Yeah.
You definitely have to get the actual aesthetic of Komi-san right down from the manga's perspective, because otherwise it doesn't really work, because a lot of the humour is visual. If you've got a non-communicative protagonist, then you have to pay very careful attention to the body language, how you're portraying them, if they're going to be doing anything else, like what sounds they're making, because they do, they show how Komi is trembling a lot because she gets scared about speaking. So how are you going to portray that in a visual medium that isn't static images?
Oh yeah, and if the notebook dialogue is it going to be voiced or isn't it going to be voiced?
So I would go with yes, but conditional. Like you can't just hand it off to any studio and ask for a run-of-the-mill adaptation, because otherwise it will just collapse.
So if you were stuck on a desert island with 3 characters from this manga, who would you pick?
Probably Komi. Yeah, I forgot the name. Agari-san?
Agari.
No? Agari.
Kimiko
Yeah.
Agari, yes.
And maybe this Otori, because they seem so they seem the most I don't know,
The most dependable.
no, we would all be like, so who does what? So yeah.
You task Tori to
Every
build.
indecisive person in this manga. So.
You task Tori to build a raft. It takes her 10 years.
That would be fun. But they are cute.
Well, I would choose Isagi because she has organizational skills. I guess a good equivalent would be Kotori. Also, Shinobino Mono, since he's a ninja, and you obviously want to have someone with versatile skills on an uninhabited island. And who else? I guess Katai, because he would scare the predators away.
Oh Lord. Who would I take with me?
Oh, and maybe Ramen Daro, because he would make ramen.
The guy from the ramen shop.
Yeah.
I guess while you guys are deciding, so I would take Cat Eye because he looks like he could do some heavy lifting. He'd be helpful to have around to like build shelters and stuff. And then I'd also have Kato Mikuni because then I can set the two of them up and they're meant to be together. And then I'll also have Manbaggy there because I don't want her to feel left out like she's probably going to feel at the end of the manga.
Aww. Oh yeah. You sure you wouldn't like to trade for Sasaki and her sweet yo-yo skills?
Oh no, I would definitely take Onamine Nene because she has big sis powers and is always very, very reliable. And then you take Shosuke as well because he is a whiz kid at everything and would be able to find his way off the island with no problems. And then obviously you have to take our goddess Komi-san because you've got to keep morale up somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. So then the last question is so for a lot of series in Jump like to do tributes to one another. Typically One Piece because it's the big tentpole of the manga. So we've had the Food Wars mangaka do a one shot for it. We've had the Boichi, the Dr. Stone artist. And I don't know if Inagaki was involved, but redo the Zoro Mihawk fight. So if any other mangaka were to do a similar thing to Komi-san, who would you like to see take a crack at it?
Naoshi Komi-san, the mangaka for Nisekoi.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
See, I'm tempted to say Yukimura just because I really like his other work, but I think that probably somebody who'd do a really good job of it would be Horikoshi because he just does a good job of most of the stuff he does. And is a pretty good artist just generally, so I think he'd be able to give it a good aesthetic.
I'd like to see what Tsutsui, the We Never Learn mangaka, would do with it.
It would become very thirsty.
But yeah, because I really love his facial expressions and the different reactions. So seeing how he'd apply his own approach to that would be really interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know many mangas.
I mean, it could be any artist. It doesn't have to be a manga artist. Just like someone you're a fan of that you follow. Or...
Bob Ross.
But I have nothing on my mind but this this artist who I don't know the name of, but who does Hard Gear, because this girl from Hard Gear is very cutesy, and I would like to see Komi-san in this art style. I don't know if it makes sense.
I'd like to see Mard Gear and Heart Gear.
I don't know. I think about it. There is a Western artist that I would like to see try any of the Komi stuff, but I think they already have drawn some of it, and that's Luth, who does a series called Bolter to Kokoro, which is a bunch of Warhammer 40,000 artwork done in an anime style, which is pretty fantastic. I think he's already drawn a few pictures of Komi-san and/or people like that, so it wouldn't be too far a stretch.
Nice. For my second choice, I guess I would go for Daisuke Ashihara, the mangaka for World Trigger, because in some sense he's also got a knack for slice of life comedy. And also, I would also like, just to give Ashihara some shit, I would also like every single character in Komi-san to have the same face for one chapter.
Yeah. At the very least, I'd be interested to see what Ashihara would do with the Komi-san setup, writing wise. That would be cool. So yeah, I think that about covers everything I wanted to talk about. And any closing thoughts on the manga?
Read Komi-san.
Yeah.
Join the church.
It's really
Do
good.
it.
It's really cute. I don't know what's much
Read
more to
it.
say about it.
No, I don't think there is. It's a fantastic manga, and everybody should go out and read it and begin worshipping Komi-san.
Yeah, no, I jokingly put on a really soft voice, but just talking about this series, I just very naturally sunk into that. It's such a departure from the first episode of this podcast, where it's just like, fuck this manga, they ruined it! Nah.
It's because it's so hard to find something like unbelievably egregious, save for that that one early arc, which is a misfire that they've walked back. The rest of the time, I don't think there have been that many missteps, and generally it's just a really adorable, quite witty at times manga. I certainly wouldn't say that it's not, you know, it's not fantastic. It's not some sort of piece of some sort of masterpiece, but it's certainly a very high quality, very well thought out, sort of enjoyable piece, and I think that a lot of people would find it quite warming, especially since a lot of the characters are very relatable to everybody in one way or another.
I'm in a place in my life that a lot of stuff is going on in the world, and Komi-san is a really good space to like stay away from that and feel safe and wholesome. And I would recommend that everyone read it.
Yeah, me too.
All right. So in that case, I guess we can round off. Is there any place that each of you want to plug something? Let's start with you, Sindri. Just be your Twitter or.
Oh god, no. I don't need people following me on Twitter, my opinions are bad.
You barely post any.
Yeah. Well, if I've got to plug anything, then I'm going to plug a manga with a which also now has an anime of a completely different tone. Go and read Vinland Saga.
Yes.
'Cause
I've
it's
been meaning
fantastic.
to for 3 years now.
Yeah, well, I'm a history doctorate, so I usually, try not to go anywhere near anything mangaka touch that relates to history, because they will probably ruin it. Yeah, Makoto Yukimura has managed not to do that, and even impress me with the length of his dedication to trying to portray Viking history really well. One of the things that I found out, for instance, was that he actually asked them when they were making the anime to adapt a very minor detail in it, because he had been on holiday to Denmark and found out that what he'd originally written was incorrect. And that sort of level of dedication to your craft is very much worthy of respect, in my opinion, and I think that it and Komi-san have that in common.
Yeah.
Wensleydale, you have a bunch of stuff to plug.
Yeah, I have a lot. Okay, so you can follow me on Twitter at WensleydaleCheddar, where I do post my shitty opinions. Usopp is the best character in fiction, by the way.
I wasn't gonna bring it up.
Anyway, you can follow me on youtube.com/c/WensleydaleCheddar, where I have a manga review / video essay show called Manga Mosaic. Recently, I published an episode about Spy X Family, so go watch it, please.
Yes, which I made a little unusual appearance on. So,
Yeah,
That is
that's
also a
right.
manga
That's
that
right.
should be plugged.
That's
That is a
right. Heaven
fantastic manga.
was a guest on it, and I especially liked his take on Spy X Family.
Thank you. Asher, did you have anything to plug?
I don't know. If you want to, you can follow me, but if you don't want to, you can not follow me. But my Twitter is very has a very weird name. I draw shitty art, and that's it.
I missed the era when it was called I Draw Titty Art.
Milo, this is a wholesome
not
family
making this up.
podcast.
I'm not making this up.
Maybe this era will come back, but I don't know.
Yes, and as always, you can follow me on Twitter at Hovin with an H. So yeah, it's been wonderful talking to you guys, and I'll see you guys next time. Right.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.